So what is human design? For those of us like myself who don't really know, what is it?
I joke that it's astrology on steroids, but what it really is, it's a system that stems from all of these ancient energetic systems. So astrology, chakra system, Kabbalah, I Ching, quantum mechanics, all brought into this one system that I know to the new I was going to say it makes it more practical and easy to understand. And you're like, what are you talking about? That looks so overwhelming. But when you actually start to learn it, it's very straightforward. It's you are a generator. Okay, you just need to do things that put a fire in your belly that make you want to do them. And if you're not doing that, you're going to burn out or be out of alignment in some way, shape, or form. So it actually tells you what to do, how to listen to your body's consciousness.
Welcome to the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of Jermar is a lifestyle brand, empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives, and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, Jean Collins, and today's guest, get ready, folks, human design. Do you even know what that is? I have to tell you, I don't really know what it is either, but I am intrigued. Adriana Keefe is here, and we are going to talk about human design. She is a coach. She's a speaker. She helps women figure out how to embody their sense of self and spirituality. And she too has a podcast. So we're going to talk about that and a coaching business. So welcome, folks, Adriana Keefe to the House of Jermar podcast.
That was the best intro. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And clearly, human design, I have no idea. Although I did go onto your website, but I am fascinated by it. So I am so excited to talk to you. So before we get into what is human design, I love to share with my audience people's backstory, because everybody doesn't just wake up one day saying, I want to be a human design coach, or I want to be an energy healer. So talk to everybody and tell us your journey that got you to where you are today.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, we will keep it short. It could probably go on for days. But where I would start would probably be when I was pregnant with my second daughter, and life from the outside looked perfect. I was in real estate at the time, which of course wasn't what I went to school for. I started in the world of veterinary and then couldn't pay my student loan bills, as probably everyone these days. So I ended up in real estate and was very successful. I won multiple awards in just my first year alone. And like I said, everything from the outside looked perfect. Great husband, house, the kids. And on the inside, I was miserable. I was anxious. I wasn't sleeping at night. Very much questions of like, why can I not be content? Why am I never happy enough? And so I hired a life coach. And I was very drawn to her because she was more holistic, which at the time was probably like still a buzzword. It was a very new word. And I grew up as someone who was in a house where they went to church. They were, I think they consider themselves Christian. To be honest, we don't have a lot of conversations around religion, but I would say Christian. And it didn't resonate with me. I was assaulted and abused for many years of my childhood. And I had a lot of traumatic events that disconnected me from anything. And so I just didn't associate with any sort of religion. But when I heard this one coach talking about spirituality, I realized there's so much more to spirituality than going to church. So I felt called to working with her. And at some point, it wasn't right off the bat. She probably knew it would scare me away. But at some point, she was like, let's look up your human design chart. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I loved horoscopes as a kid, but they didn't really, it was like fun to read. And then that was it. There was nothing that changed your life that came from it. And I also did not like personality tests because I've taken the Enneagram a couple times, had different results because of different points in my life. And I just didn't see the consistency in it. That's just my opinion.
Yep.
And then she put in my birth information and all of this stuff about me that resonated with little me before I really doled myself down. It blew my mind because on the the grander scheme of things, I was like, but what does this mean? If you can just take my birth info and put it in something, and it says that I'm a manifesting generator, which means I'm an energizer bunny. I get bored of things easily. I need new challenges. I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, which is super common for those who are manifesting generators. And that started me on this path of what else is out there. How does this make any sense, basically?
Right.
And over time, just started unlocking more of my human design. And then people started asking me to read their charts. And now here we are.
That is amazing. So first of all, I'm so sorry about your childhood. I don't want to skim right over that. So I am sorry about that. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because I do think a lot of times people have traumatic experiences in their childhood and they don't talk about them and they don't acknowledge that they happened. And that's a lot of underlying baggage, and we all have baggage, but it's sitting there. So thank you for being willing to acknowledge that and be vulnerable for that. So thank you. Okay, so you have 3 kids, right?
I do. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What are the ages of your children?
My oldest is almost 10, and then 5 and a newly 3-year-old.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
That's a lot. You have a lot going on in your life.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It is a lot. Yeah. All right. So human design. All right. So how did you get from real estate to what you're doing now? Did you just one day decide, I'm done with real estate? You phased out of it. You're still in it a little bit. What was that path like?
It was an inner knowing that I refused. And so for a long time, I was still letting myself be in the industry, but I was noticing the resentment that was building up every time my phone would ring at 10 p.m. at night, or I had to go show houses every weekend instead of taking my daughter to the beach, all of these things. And my second daughter, when I was actually in labor with her, I had to pass off a home listing to someone else because offers were coming in and I was actually in labor. And I think it was actually giving birth to her that made me realize, nope, I'm never going back to that. So during my maternity leave, I slowly transitioned out of that. Now, I will say I was very fortunate where my husband had a job that could support both of us during that time.
Right.
But I did also, I'm someone, you probably can resonate with this as a generator type. I can't sit still. Like I need something to do. So I did start up a business with a network marketing company during that time, which I absolutely loved. And it brought me connection and fulfillment during that time. That was kind of my in-between phase. But I would say I knew for a long time and I didn't want to admit it because I would feel like a failure, or people would, tell me I was crazy. I did have people in my family telling me I was crazy for giving up a successful career, but
Of
I
course.
knew it the whole time. I knew it.
You did. Your intuition just said, this is what's calling you and this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
How did you start learning? Because I did my human design, just so everyone knows, and I'm going to have a session with Adriana after this, and then we're going to do some add-ons to this show. But there is so much information here, and there are numbers and symbols, and how is this not overwhelming for you to decide, oh yeah, I'm going to take this on, and this is what I'm going to learn now?
Well, to be honest, it was overwhelming at first, and I was like, there is no way I can learn this. But it was like I would take baby steps. I always say you start with the top 3 things that are type, strategy, and authority. And then I just started living them, because that was one of the biggest things that I saw going wrong in other modalities like astrology. I love astrology. I still go to my astrologer friends for readings and natal things. But when we take that information and we just binge it, but we don't actually integrate any of it, nothing is changing. So I was starting to actually integrate it and practice it. It's an energetic experiment within your life. And over time, because I was taking it slowly, I could start to take in more and more information. I will say I still can get overwhelmed by some aspects of it. And when I feel that, I know it's not my time to learn it yet. So I just go back to the things that I want refreshers on, or focus on integrating even more and going deeper with that. But it's really just layers at a time. You don't need to know the whole system in order to see huge benefits from it. And my life and my clients' lives all prove that.
So what is human design for those of
Yeah.
us like myself who don't really know? What is it?
I joke that it's astrology on steroids, but what it really is, it's a system that stems from all of these ancient energetic systems. So astrology, chakra system, Kabbalah, I Ching, quantum mechanics, all brought into this one system that I know to the new I was going to say it makes it more practical and easy to understand. And you're like, what are you talking about? That looks so overwhelming. But when you actually start to learn it, it's very straightforward. It's you are a generator. Okay, you just need to do things that put a fire in your belly that make you want to do them. And if you're not doing that, you're going to burn out or be out of alignment in some way, shape, or form. So it actually tells you what to do, how to listen to your body's consciousness. It doesn't matter what level or sense of spirituality you have. Remember, I had none when I first started this. We can all, I think, look back on a time when our gut or something, intuition told us something was off and we didn't trust it and then we regretted it. That's what the body consciousness is. And it connects on a way higher level than we could ever understand. But this is literally about teaching you how to communicate with your body and listen to what he or she is telling you, because it's giving you guidance every single day that we have to trust, but it takes time.
And so my guess is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the things like me being a generator, that's not changing in me. That
Correct.
trait is related to who I am. And so when I went to your human design calculator, if that's even the right word for it on your website.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever. Your human design chart, right? And you
Yes.
go in, and I think I put in when I was born, what time I was born, and where I was born. And so the where I was born, I can see how that relates to a lot of astrology, and to what your signs are related to where in the earth you were when you were born and the time of day. And so I put all those things in, and out from that, it output my human design. And so I'm guessing that the output is not changing. It's your job as a coach is to help people know these things about themselves, whether it be their strengths or their weaknesses, and then how to best work with those to get people to be the best versions of themselves. Am I correct in that?
Exactly. And bringing
Yeah.
you back into alignment with the way that your energy says you're designed to be, which
Right.
for a lot of us, it's how we were as kids before we were told to sit down and look pretty and don't speak. That's not the case for everyone, but certainly for a lot of women. That's what I see.
Right. And so how do your clients find you?
Typically through my podcast. I
Okay.
think a lot of women, especially since COVID, are wondering what is out there for them besides what they've been made to think was the societal norm. And we've been starting to understand that things like talk therapy maybe aren't the only route that you can take. Maybe there's something deeper. And we're all very interested in energetics right now, right? Everyone's obsessed with manifestation and the law of attraction and all of that. But all of that comes from being in alignment. Like, have you ever seen someone who's so fiery passionate about what they do that you don't even need their product, but like you want it because you love what they're doing? That's exactly what that is. That's alignment, and that's magnetism. And women especially, but it is everyone right now, are trying to understand themselves so that they can live a fuller, happier life than the generations before us did.
It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And do people, women in particular, like, do our energies change as we go through different stages, right? Like, so I'm 54. And so this whole like pre-menopause stage has just an abundance of physical changes and even emotional changes as well. Do you find understanding human design helps with that?
First of all, what are you eating? Because you look incredible. Like when you said you were 54, I was like, no, she's not.
I
What?
am. I just turned 54.
No way. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are you a
couple weeks
Leo
ago.
or a Virgo?
I'm a Leo.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am
My
a
son's a Leo, a little fireball. So I would say yes to that. What we really focus on, especially in my work, because human design is the tool that I use to help heal me from all these years of childhood trauma. It's deconditioning. It's peeling back the layers of conditioning that society has placed upon us, which is everyone right now. It's very normal. And coming back home to what's true and authentic for ourselves. So me 5 years ago, you wouldn't think I'm the same person. I was way more reactive, emotionally charged. I didn't have boundaries. I wasn't grounded. So you over time can definitely see the way that you change and you become a little bit more in harmony with the energy that's naturally yours and the way that you react to things. There's a lot of nervous system work in what I do. Because it's one thing to learn about the human design system and think, oh, great, that's all I have to do. I can just be that. But now we're all aware of the subconscious, right? And how our nervous system goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and we don't have control over that. So my work specifically takes into account the nervous system and somatic energy work and all of that, so that you can be, I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but the best version of yourself. And it will evolve over time. You will change. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So you just talked about a bunch of ways that you changed. Did your inner circle of friends have to change as well as you
Ooh.
changed, or you
Ooh.
evolved?
Oof. Yeah.
And how did you deal with that? How did you deal with that? Because I get asked that question a lot. And I think that the fear of that change, not only within yourself, but within your circle of friends, the older we get, that fear prevents women from doing anything about any of it.
This is such a hot topic. Yes.
Yeah. What happened?
Now I find myself evolving so rapidly that I've been kind of transitioning in and out of certain crowds every year or so, which I feel like I've kind of become a little bit of a pro at letting things go that don't serve me. But it was so much harder at first, those long-term relationships that you really put faith and trust in, but then you're starting to realize they never ask about you. They don't ask about your work. They don't, they talk about how their lives suck and they don't do anything to change, I really live by Jim Rohn's quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." There's literally studies shown on this.
Yeah.
So it's so timely that you're asking me this, because just recently, like I'm talking about like 4 days ago, I decided to put together a local mastermind of women, because I live in the woods in Massachusetts and there's not a lot of people like me. And while I have a lot of online friends who are great, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So I started putting together this group of women who are in the spiritual or wellness realm, who all want to get together once a month and just hold each other accountable, help each other grow, collaborate. You will start to notice that as you continue to grow, even if you're not a business owner, but just in your own personal development, you are going to shed people who are uncomfortable seeing you grow. And it takes time. And again, that word trust comes up. It takes trust in your own process, that it's okay to let those pieces go. And I think right now we're honestly seeing a lot of women going through divorce because of this as well. All of my mentors have been divorced since finding their version of success, and amicable in most cases. They just recognize that, they've evolved a lot faster than they ever expected to, and their needs change.
Right. Right. And I also think the more in tune you become with yourself and who you truly are, at least for me, the less tolerance I have for the superficial.
Yes.
And I think we're raised to have the superficial relationships with people. And I have found for myself and for many of my podcast guests that have gone through and done a lot of work and a lot of growth work and have had to shed those past people. A lot of times it's because they can't relate to you. They look at you like you're crazy when you start to talk about energy and manifesting. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, witchy girl, go away. But also those relationships aren't as fulfilling. And you said one of my favorite quotes, which I think about a lot lately, because there's a ton of change going on in my mind. And I think a lot about, the 5 people that I spend the most time with. And are those people helping me raise my bar? I don't care about their bar, but are they helping me raise my bar? I do care about their bar, but you know what I mean? Because it's like, if they're not helping me grow or challenging me, then maybe that's not their function in my life as my top 5 anymore.
Yep, I second that. I always aspire to be the dumbest person in the room.
Oh yeah, me too.
I just realized I was always the person people were asking for things. And while I'm here for it, that's literally a part of my design. I have that role model aspect of me. Yeah. And I feel like there's so much energy being sucked into that, when I want to put that energy into my work and my personal time. I want to put on me being the dumb one who needs help. Like, I want to surround myself with all these people who have already surpassed where I am.
Right. Hence why I'm the dumb one who knows nothing about human design and has you on my podcast. And reached out to you blindly, like, hey, because you're a member of Hey Mama. And I was like, okay, she's a member of Hey Mama. She might respond. But I'm like, hey, I'm this woman who knows nothing about what you do, but I'm just fascinated by it. Would you be willing to be on my new show? Which was so great. So thank you for that. I love that. What made you decide you wanted to be on a podcast?
That's a great
Because
question.
you do both. I've listened to your episodes before. So you have guests and you do solo episodes. So you do both. Was that always the intent to do both?
Yes. Okay, backtracking. I'm trying to think where this started. It actually did stem from recognizing that people always asked me for my advice or for tips. And this was before I even became the human design expert. My podcast was called Women Who Want More, and it stemmed out of my journey of trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. And I am very what's called claircognizant. I have this inner knowing that I can't explain. It's not like channeled guidance or something. I just know. And I would say to my friend Tina, she's actually still a great friend of mine. I was like, would you start a podcast with me? I just feel like I want to start a podcast. I don't know why, I just do. And she was too busy with having babies and, being a mom at the time. So I started it on my own, and it's just evolved since. I think now that I understand more of my own energetics, I am a Scorpio moon in astrology, for anyone who understands what that means. And that means that I'm someone who really wants to go deep with you. Social media, I'll do some posting here and there, but really for me to feel like I'm getting my message across, I want to talk to you. I want to have a conversation. I don't talk about the weather. I want to talk about like your deepest childhood wounds. Like that's just who I am. And being on a podcast was so easy. It's just a conversation, and you just get to meet people and talk to them. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's really great. It is. I love it. All right. So back to human design. How did you turn this into a coaching business? Like you have a passion for human design. All right. So you learned some more. And then how do you turn that into a coaching business?
Interesting that I'm talking to someone who's an expert in interior design and all things like that, because before COVID, I went and started school for interior design. And I was really obsessed with the mental aspect of decluttering and what that can physiologically do for you. I'm someone who has always struggled with anxiety, and physical and mental space and all of that was really important. So I started wondering what it would look like if I started teaching people things like this in the coaching atmosphere. So when I first started coaching, I was actually coaching moms on decluttering. And that was cool because I got to talk about the mental aspect, and I got to be on cool like media outlets like Fox News and all that stuff. But I still, again, had that like missing piece. And so when I started working with a different business coach, she kept saying, you know a lot about this thing called human design. And I'm like, yeah, I like it. And then she would be like, you should lead with that. And I was like, no. And she kept pushing me and kept pushing me. See, I wasn't out of the quote spiritual closet. I was like, people are going to think I'm so weird. Human design is only really in right now. This was like a few years ago when it was still probably super weird. Now I don't care. If I'm talking to someone, I'll tell them I'm a medium and I channel spirit and I do human design. I don't care. But it took a long time for me to admit that it was something I wanted to talk about and that I didn't have to know everything about human design to start teaching it.
Interesting. Well, because it's like this in sales, it's like this too. You know more at your point in time than anyone else does in the room if they're interested in learning. You already are ahead of them. And so you do know more. And I had someone mention that to me as a coach recently, that she felt like she wasn't qualified. And her coach said to her, you are qualified because you're ahead of the people you're coaching.
Exactly.
So that makes you innately qualified, and your life experience, it makes you innately qualified, which I'm a huge proponent of. The experience of life we don't give ourselves enough credit for, especially as women. We always kind of put ourselves down like we just aren't good enough, don't know enough, we aren't advanced enough to take a risk and try these things. So I love stories like yours where you go and you do that. So if you told your parents, I'm a medium and I channel energy, what do they say to that?
They say, I know. They have examples.
Really?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I've learned a lot more about what my parents' belief systems are since studying this kind of stuff. And it turns out mediumship is prevalent in my mom's side of the family. So now I'm very fortunate. My grandparents on that side are still living, and they just moved back here from Florida. And my grandmother loves hearing about my mediumship and intuitiveness because she's almost reopening her own door and talking about spirits that she's been talking to lately. So It runs on that side of the family. And when I was a kid, I guess I did it. I don't have memory of this, but they have stories that they share with me about this kind of thing. And it's also been really interesting speaking to my dad, who's from Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of church going Christianity energy there. However, when I told him that I believe I was talking to my abuelo, my grandfather, he also said, I know. And I would give him examples of things that I was seeing. Like, was this blue car? Did he have this? And he would be like, yep, this was his car. And he said he talks to my abuelo every day. And so what I was so afraid to share, because I was afraid of shame and judgment, I was judging them on their belief systems just because they went to church. So it's actually opened up a really cool subject for all of our family to talk about.
Yeah. Were you afraid of it when you first had it?
Which part?
Like, was it scary? The intuitive part of feeling like you can see people, you can hear things. Like, is that scary?
Yeah. Still, even now, I will, because the way that I channel, I feel them. Like have you ever seen Long Island Medium? And she's like, I can feel like choking or chest.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of mediumship that I can also feel. And so most of the time I would end up crying my eyes out because it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was always still when I was practicing it. Now, but that was kind of before I had awareness of what was happening. But now I kind of let it move through me and know that it's fine. I have a lot better boundaries. But yeah, back then, especially, I do remember never feeling alone when I was a kid, which was a little creepy.
Yeah.
But now when I sense energy, I just have better tools on how to work with it.
What to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, what do your kids think? Like, what do they think mom does?
So my 9-year-old is really into human design. She loves learning about herself. There's this big human design expert named Jenna Zoe who has an app. It's a really great app. And she'll give like little audio clips for certain things. So my daughter loves listening to her audio clips. And my other two, they don't really get much of it yet, except my 5-year-old. She's a Cancer and she's very highly emotional. And so a lot of my tools that I've learned in energetics have been extremely helpful with her and knowing her design. So she does the things like tapping. I use emotional freedom technique in my work. So my kids know tapping, especially when they're having a hard time. But yeah, other than that, I don't think we've had too many conversations about channeling dead people yet. So to be continued.
Oh, but you will. Yeah. You definitely will. Now, there's so much out there that you could keep learning. How do you decide what you want to learn next? Because most people I've found who are coaches and who are in the personal growth space are constantly learning. So what are you doing to keep learning? And how do you decide what you want to learn next?
There's this beautiful piece of your human design chart that tells you how to make decisions based on your design. So you have your chart in front of you, right? Does it say sacral or emotional authority?
It says inner authority.
Yes.
Under strategy? Oh, emotional. Solar plexus.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So you and I have the same authority. This is the way that we're designed to make decisions. So when something feels exciting to us, we're actually designed to sleep on it, to wait until we ride out the emotional highs and lows and wait for a more grounded, clear, emotional answer before deciding. So basically, our decisions in the now are useless because later we could regret that we made that decision, feel completely different emotionally about it. So if I have 5 things I want to learn about in human design, I don't take action right away. I sit with it. I've actually, again, another timely question. I'm trying to figure out what next course I want to take. And I'm sitting with it. I want to feel which one feels the most grounded in my body and feels like I get excited when I think about it. So that's just an example for you and I. But if you had your chart, you would check the authorities and see how your body can communicate with you to make that decision. And a lot of times it has to do with the themes in your life too. Like what is the biggest pain point in your life right now? And then being able to figure out what part of your chart can lead you to that road to clarity would be helpful.
Well, and that's super helpful because I also think as an entrepreneur, and you might have this and might tap into your human design a lot, I feel like entrepreneurs that are creative, like us, we constantly have new business ideas. Constantly. Like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I want to write a book and I want to start a coaching program and I want to, have a podcast and I want to speak and I want to, like, the list goes on of
Yep.
things that I find are, especially as a generator, like things that I find that are really exciting. And so I would guess that you tap into your human design to help you put the guardrails on being an entrepreneur and not being quite so overwhelmed by all of that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm a manifesting generator, but it is a generator type. So essentially you and I have the same high level type, which means that although we have all these ideas and things we want to take action on, we're actually designed to not do anything until something external of us gives us that go. So that's like signs and synchronicities, things that keep showing up. Yes, exactly.
I ask for them every day from the universe.
Yep. And so like if you were thinking about starting to do speaking gigs, maybe at corporate companies, okay, we've put that out there. Now let's wait and see what happens. And then you meet someone who is like, oh, I feel like this would be a great workshop for my team at whatever company. And then you see commercial that's like, learn how to be a speaker, whatever it is. Those are all the signs. So it's literally not doing anything until you get a green light that's outside of you.
That's so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Now, what do you personally do? I love to ask this question of other people because, we don't see what your life is like as a mom with 3 kids and, life is crazy, right? What do you do for personal wellness for yourself? What are your routines? Because you probably have access to everything from Reiki to acupuncture to every spiritual healer there could be. What do you do for yourself?
I will say my routine ebbs and flows, very seasonal, especially when you're a mom of young kids. It's what time can I wake up without wanting to die today, essentially. So I will always prioritize physical fitness, especially as a generator type. We have a lot of energy we need to get out. Some days that's yoga, some days that's a HIIT workout. It's just whatever it is. Maybe it's a walk. I will always prioritize meditation and visualization and connecting to something that's bigger than me. For me, I use the word universe or source a lot, or talk to my guides, doesn't matter. Just feeling connected to something that's grand here. I do get Reiki once a month. I do have a lot of really cool people in my realm. Like 2 weeks ago, I had ancestral healing through tarot. And there's a lot of just like what feels super exciting to me today kind of energy.
Right.
Tapping, my emotional freedom technique it's not just for the healing process. It's for like everyday things too. So most days I do tapping and really prioritizing presence with my family because especially as a business owner, you can feel like you never get enough, especially if you love what you do. You just always want to be doing it. So I have to put my phone down, hard stop at 5, put things away, and just be with my family. If I'm trying to do too much, I feel frustrated. It's game over.
Amazing. Do you have a sleep routine, a night routine?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's totally opposite than what sleep experts say. You know how they say like no blue light before bed and all that? Well, for generator types, we need to wind down. We can't just like go and hit our pillow. Does that resonate with you? Like if you were like running around and went to hit your pillow, would you fall right asleep?
It is. Sometimes I can, but I found I've been sleeping better if I read for 10 minutes even. It doesn't even have to be serious if I just read for 10 minutes. And my boyfriend has to like be on his iPad reading something. And I'm like, but the blue light, like you're going against. I'm like, I don't understand. At least I'm just doing it with like my little book light and reading. And he's like, I have to do that. Or he plays games, solitaire or whatever on his iPad in order to fall asleep. And I'm like, that goes against everything they say about blue light.
I know.
So I don't know.
For myself and my husband, it's like watching a show before we go to bed. It's that sweet spot between the kids are in bed. We have like an hour to ourselves and we just crash on the couch and we hang out. It ebbs and flows based on the season that we're in, but that puts me out like a light. I'm like, great, this is my routine. Yes, I don't have problems sleeping after blue light.
Right, exactly. Well, and it proves that just everybody's different and finding what routine works for you to get the greatest outcome and the greatest output for yourself. Now, you mentioned your husband. What does your husband think about all this?
Oh, he loves it. He was into this world before I was, but he was like low key about it. Yeah. When we first started dating, he was talking about the blanket theory, which I hadn't heard of. It just essentially means like how everything is all under one blanket. Everything's all connected.
Sure.
He talks about aliens. He said, there's obviously life in other places, and I didn't believe that. And of course, now why wouldn't there be? I mean,
of course.
how are we the only existence?
How are we the only ones? What
Right,
makes us think we're so special?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So he's really into this. He has his human design chart framed up on his wall in his office. I don't even have that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool, though. Then he's
Yeah.
really supportive.
Mhm.
So I noticed on your website that you also do coaching with couples. Tell us a little bit about how that works, because that I think is a really cool niche that not a lot of people do.
Yeah, I do chart readings with couples. I wouldn't say I'm a full-on couples coach, but there's a lot that you can see through your charts and through understanding how you're both designed, how you're designed to interact with one another, how you're designed to make decisions. For example, my husband is a sacral generator, which means that he makes instant, quick gut decisions, and I'm emotional. I need to take my time. So if we were ever in an argument, he's right there. He wants an answer right now. And I'm like, oh no, I am hot and heavy right now. Like I need to back up and take a beat. So just learning simple things like that can be a huge game changer, not just in times of arguing, but in any big decision.
Yes.
There's another type within the system called a projector. And the way that they're designed to interact with the world around them is to actually wait to be invited to share their guidance and their advice. If they're trying to share it before other people are actively open to receiving it, then there's a whole wall that gets put up and it doesn't feel good. So what if your husband is a projector and he keeps spewing his advice on you and you keep getting angry? Or maybe he's not talking at all because you're not asking him to share. There's so much that can be found in communication, in how much energy someone has. Maybe you're feeling like your partner is lazy compared to you. Well, I would guess that's in their chart, right? It's giving each other grace and understanding, I would say, would be the biggest part.
I think that is fascinating. And I would think would be so helpful for any couple to really just understand innately how someone else's energy works. And not we tend to, myself included, I judge people based on my bar and my energy.
Right.
And my output and my speed of output. And that tends to be where I judge people and compare them to me. But everybody's so different. And I think understanding that this is how they're designed is so fascinating, because it puts some science behind why we are the way we are.
Yes. And adding to that, there's a lot of human design that was, human design was a channeled system through a man. And there's a lot of stuff in science that is proving it to be accurate. For example, the word neutrinos, which is the stream that comes from the planets that imprints us. It's the tiny particles. He channeled that word before science picked it up and dubbed it neutrinos. And the 64 gates within the human design system are being connected to the same traits that are in the 64 DNA. Why can't I think of the word right now? Yeah. So there's a lot of science that's actually matching up with this, which, of course, I went to school for science. So I'm like, give me all of that.
Right.
I want to know
I'm going to
geek out.
I'll geek out on the science
exactly.
side. Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, you just recently did something, which I don't know a lot about, some 100-mile something,
Yes.
I want to say.
Yeah.
I just want you to tell everybody what you did, because I think it just gives a testament to the type of person you are.
So we have a local foundation here that supports families with children going through cancer. So pediatric cancer charity. And every year they host, well, not they, actually, it's someone else who hosts it for this organization, hosts a 100-mile ruck over 4 days. And a ruck, if you're not familiar with that, it's a military-inspired event where you're carrying everything you need on your back for the entire length of the trip. So we had 25 miles a day for 4 days. We had tents, we had food, with the exception of where we would pitch tents at night. There were at breweries, so there would be some food that we could get there. And beer, because why not? You're walking 100 miles, might as well have a beer. And so I just completed that. It was at the end of July, and all the proceeds went to the charity. It literally pays the salary of the employees every year. That's how much they're able to fundraise through this. So it's for a really great cause. And it was something that I was able to train really hard in for almost a year and challenge myself, which manifesting generators need a good challenge. And that is a good challenge. I'm pretty sure I fractured my foot. I have to go get an x-ray this week. Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. Yeah. Did you do it with a group of other people or just your husband? Somebody, like other people to hold you accountable for training?
Well, my husband did it, but didn't train like I did. He was actually suffering a lot more because he started training just like 2 months before. There were about 45 of us that did it, although I didn't train with any of them. They were all from kind of a different location than we were.
Wow. That sounds like honestly hell to me, but more power to you.
It wasn't fun.
I was just gonna say, I don't know. That doesn't sound fun at all.
It was very rewarding.
I think the Appalachian Trail sounds more fun than that. And that to me is also an incredible stretch and not something I even think I would put on my bucket list. But I love that you did it for a charity. And I saw you posting about that. And I thought, wow, that is very, very cool.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
It was a really cool experience. Thank you.
Yeah. So what is on your bucket list for the future? What are some things that you want to do personally and professionally?
So I just started recently admitting this. Like this just came out of me within the past couple of months after doing a lot of ego work, I would say. I have a vision of being the go-to celebrity human design expert because there really isn't one. Like there's big human design educators, but there really isn't. I don't know if you're familiar with Eliza Kelly or Colin Bedell. They're big in astrology in that realm, but there isn't anyone doing human design in that realm. And I've always wanted to do things massively on a big scale. So that's what I'm shooting for. That's what I'm aiming for.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
I don't see any reason why you won't succeed at that.
Right? I always did, but now I don't. Now I get it. I'm literally designed to do that. So I'm going to let myself stop getting in my own way.
And trust. You mentioned trust a lot in the beginning of our talk. So just trusting, taking your own advice. Ooh,
exactly.
I can't wait to be able to say, I knew her when.
Yes.
That's so cool. So that is career-wise on the bucket list. What personally is on the bucket list?
Personally, let's see, which one of these do I want to take into account here? Personally, I am on, I mean, I guess it takes a little bit of career into it, but I would really like to be completely independent. And what I mean by that is I've had friends who unfortunately had like awful ends to their marriage that were unexpected, or maybe their spouse passed away, or all of these things. And not to get super negative here, but I've seen them really struggle because they were not an independent person, whether that meant financially or around the house, not logging into their mortgage account, whatever it is. So it's been about 1.5 years now that I've been very actively working on my own independence financially around the house, everything with the kids and figuring all of that out. Just not to say that like my husband's dying or anything, but I want to be someone who knows that she can stand on her own 2 feet should anything ever happen. So that's really the biggest thing that I'm working on right now. And it's even in the small things. Like I can't open a jar in my kitchen. Instead of going to ask my husband, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this. So I figure out a way and I do it.
OXO makes this very cool can opener thing. It's the OXO brand. My father bought it for me. And it's shaped like this and has metal prongs in it. You wouldn't think it would work. It works for every single can. It's round on the outside, and attached in it is a rubber mat. And you put the rubber mat on the counter, you put the glass there, and you can open absolutely anything.
Oh my God, totally getting it.
OXO.
You should be an affiliate.
It's probably $15. It's so great. But I mean, I've been single for 17 years and have had to figure out how to do everything myself, without asking for help for things. And like, if a man isn't there to open stuff, that's what, like 2 weeks ago, I decided, maybe it wasn't even 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I decided I wanted to change the energy in my office. And I had interviewed a feng shui expert on my show, and then I'd had a flood at my house, and I was like, you know what, we need to change some energy around here. I gotta go find a room that I feel is the most stagnant, and I gotta clear up, and I gotta change the energy here. So I decided at 8:00 in the morning that morning, I was gonna move the furniture in my office by myself, of course. Moving my, solid wood stand-up desk that weighs a ton, and a file cabinet that weighs a ton, and I have these little wheels, and you jack the thing up and you stick the little wheels under, and I can move my elliptical machine by myself.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And I was doing it and the little jack slipped from underneath the file cabinet and my eye, this whole eye, smashed right into the corner of the windowsill. I had a podcast interview 2 days later and my whole eye was black and blue and purple. So I wore a hat. So I wore a Stetson cowboy hat because the shadow of it covered my eye. I was like, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? Woman, hear me roar. I want to move it. I'm doing it. I don't need to wait for anybody.
Oh my God.
Determined.
Yes.
I am determined to be able to do this on my own. Like, what if someone else wasn't coming to help me?
Right.
I need to figure it out. And I just was determined. And in the end, my office was so clean and I was so happy with it. And I feel like the energy flows better. And yeah, I had a black and purple eye for a week and a half and looked terrible, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, there's always something to asking for help. I'm not sitting here saying that women shouldn't ask for help, especially when you're a mom. But there's something so deeply satisfying about knowing you did something on your own. It's just so good. So good.
And you mentioned a really good point about the finances. There are so many women who don't understand the finances of their home. And if something were to happen to their spouse, they don't even know who holds their mortgage, where their mortgage is, how the payment is made. And that's terrifying, especially if you're in a situation of a crisis. And that's not when you want to have to be figuring that stuff out, is then you want to know what those things are in advance.
Yeah. So. My husband lost his job for 9 months last year. And so we were living on just my income and some unemployment. And I was like, oh yeah, like this is getting real. I really need to make sure that I can sustain this family should anything happen. I mean, you never know. Right. You never know.
No, you never know. Exactly. You never know. You don't want it to ever happen, but it's good to know that you planned and thought about it.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you. Anything else I didn't touch on that you think people would want to know about human design or about your business?
The one thing that is coming through is just to know that if you're thinking human design's interesting, but you're like, well, that's kind of woo-woo, or it's a little scary, a little witchy, or whatever, you're just not connecting on that level. I want you to know that there is a very practical, scientific way that you can approach it. And I always meet people with where they're at. I never push my beliefs on them. Doesn't matter if you believe in God, Buddha, whatever. I think this tool and this system is so beautiful when you learn how to make it your own. And I think that's what I love about it so much is it's everyone's individual journey. We're here to guide you, but it's your experiment and your energy. And it's really about having fun with it and not taking it too seriously.
Ooh, that's a good one. I love that. Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, I am going to sign up to do a session with you to have you read and explain my human design to me in greater detail so that when this episode launches, I can create some reels that go along with it. And we can take some of the content that we spoke about and I can actually relate it to myself and be vulnerable and share the things I learned about myself. So thank you for that. It'll be so fun. All right. So before I let you go, because I've taken up enough of your time, I always ask my guests if they have a book that they could recommend that helped them with their personal wellness, their career wellness, or just life in general. So what book would you like to recommend people read?
Oof. It is called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. Are you familiar with it?
I have not read it, but I have heard of it. Yep.
It is the first book that sent me into the coaching world in the sense of like, I don't want to say F the patriarchy because I'm honestly not like that, like gung-ho about that, but taking back the world as women, it really sent me on that path of like, who says BMI is what makes me healthy or not healthy? Right. And who says working 40 hours a work week is what's normal, right? It made me question everything and in a good way, not in a bad way. And It healed a lot of me, especially the parts of me that were really struggling with body image and eating. I mean, that's still a journey. That is a long journey. But today's society as a woman, social media, it is not easy to look any way, shape, or form. People will shun you. So I really loved this book for any woman, anyone right now.
Great. I'm going to put that in the show notes. I will read it. I read all the books that everyone recommends because I find I love books. I'm a huge proponent of books. I think you can learn so much from a book, just like you can learn so much from a podcast. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your journey. And you are proof that trusting your intuition is really valuable. And I appreciate that because I know I am constantly trying to decide like, what's the universe saying? And what am I supposed to really be doing?
Always.
And talking to you today is just such a good reminder. Like, just listen a little, trust a little, and listen to what your body's saying about these things. And we all know, what excites us and what lights us up. We know that. We just have to give ourselves permission to tap into that and to go down that path and squash the fear a little bit. So thank you for sharing your story. And I will put in the show notes everything so everybody can find you on Instagram. I will link your podcast so everybody can follow you, subscribe. Folks, follow, comment, like, rate. That is how we grow our podcast. So please do that for Adriana as well. And I thank you. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was great to see you. We'll talk soon.
Too.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of Jermar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of Jermar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.